I read your preview. I was really looking forward to your talk on Live Ladat and ears that hear, eyes that see. So it's such a wonderful image and can lead us in so many directions. And the idea of this day, and I completely agree with you. What's different about this day? Because you get to start over, which the Hasidim saw as the greatest miracle that you don't have to be what you were yesterday. You can actually be a better version. And when I do my daily practice and I try to really marshal up all my focus and say, today I will not speak in anger. Today I will not criticize, including I will not give unsolicited advice. Today I will not complain, especially in surreptitious why questions. Today I will not use harsh language if I find myself in escalating conflict. One, two, three, and I'm out. I, if someone's upset at me after a couple of tries, no bad Jedi. Don't try to persuade a resistant person. I go through the whole thing myself. And I never once said, well, I said this yesterday. Never once. It always feels completely new. And my Yetzer Hara says, are you kidding? Like, you want to live like that? I said, yeah, I'm gonna live like this. And it's like, wow, damn, you serious, dude? It's like, all right. I'm not gonna permit this, but I'm impressed with the effort. It's never the same, right? My daily practice is never, ever the same because it's a new day for the Yetzer Hara to say, I will interfere with your life's purpose, which is being a person of virtue and dignity. That's not what the Yetzer Hara wants of us. You say virtue and dignity and honor, it just alerts the Yetzer Hara to focus the attack. So, when I heard you talk about the idea of the new day, it resonated with me so greatly because it's exactly what I feel every time I start my new day. It's a new day because I'm back here again. Another thing I want to say in a kind of a confessionary way is my devotion to wisdom work and repeating wisdom work. It comes from a couple of things, and I want you to know that it was a considered decision. I used to do a Wednesday spirituality seminar at the building, and it went from spiritual psychology to wisdom because people would come in and I do a little bit of theory, and then they'd ask questions that almost always came down to their interpersonal relationships. In that context, wisdom work was born. Um, and A person would come in the next week. It was the same thing. And they said, well, I just had a very, very tough struggle with my husband. He did this and this and this. And I said, well, let's all regroup for a moment and talk about finding your center and drawing kind, clear, and firm boundaries and not getting defensive because that ratchets things up. Oh, right, you did mention that. And then every week, somebody would come in with the thing we talked about before. And so I'm thinking, oh, I have this other thing I need to teach. So I'll teach some of that and then move on. I thought to myself, maybe I should be teaching that. Maybe I should not have this other thing to teach, but teach that. And so I began to say 90% virtue, 10% spirituality, because spirituality without a wisdom container really does us no good. I mean, we've all been distressed by hearing about highly spiritual people that can't be people of virtue, and probably because they don't train in virtue. Where this brings up my martial arts and my military background. You have to train, you have to drill, you have to train, you have to drill. And last little anecdote here. One time, someone from Australia came to our services at the Will Street Bell. He really loved it. Came back the next year, came again. I go out to the porch and he wants to complain. He says, I came all the way from Australia to attend High Hollies with you, and you said the same thing this year as you said last year. And I said, did you do it? It's like, well, no. I said, okay. So I'll keep teaching until everybody does it. So he goes, yeah, that's a really good point. So that is part of it. I want to help you drill. I want to help you drill because the day that you get really upset, that you get triggered, and you say, wait a minute, don't talk, breathe, go to a wisdom script. Or the day you remember to start your day with no four C's, no bad Jedi. The day you say to yourself, I'm not going to persuade a resistant person what to do. If have a case to make, I'll make it with wisdom. If you're a parent, your kid's not doing something that you want them to do, you don't say you're being lazy. You teach them insight. You don't do your homework? Yes. What do you want to do instead? I, what? I want to do my video game. Tell me about your video game. And you find out they're learning all kinds of skills and say, here's a problem in life. There's things that people expect us to do, and there's what we want to do. So you're not lazy. You just have the will to do something different. So I want you to look at yourself, and because you solved the problem. When you sat up here by yourself with your homework to do, you solved the problem. The problem is, which one am I going to do? And why do you want to do the homework? Because you made a pretty serious decision. And the kids, am I in trouble? Am I in trouble? Not in trouble. You're not in trouble. We're having an insight conversation. So I used to say to my kids, I have my coach hat and I have my authority hat. And my coach hat was to teach insight. My authority hat would be to assign a consequence if needed. And we talk and they say, okay. I said, that's great. The homework is boring. It's repetitive. Doesn't mean anything to you. And this other thing you're doing really sounds compelling. So I'll tell you what, if you can accept the consequences, don't do the homework. And I said, so what'll happen? You know what? I better do about half of it because, like that's a passing. I said, okay, do half your homework, enough to get through class tomorrow and do this thing you love to do. Now, when I would teach it, people get fears. They say, but Rabbi Finley, you're not allowing your kid to learn from their homework and get into, you know, the honors class, to get into the best college, to get a great job. And I've met people in their 40s who had the great job, and boy, their lives were not lived well because they had no insight. They had no sense of self. They had no sense of their own purpose, their own journey. So I drew back to that homework moment, and this is the real work. The parent who says, I don't care about your homework. I care about you. And if you're not going to do your homework, do it consciously, do it mindfully, do it intentionally, and know what choice you're making. That moment is worth a year of homework, maybe even all the homework in the world. That moment of insight. So in my Parenting the Soul of the Child class, one of the top things was, right, a parent who enforces homework is not teaching wisdom and insight. A parent who says, let's put the homework aside. I want to talk about you because you're going to go through life with this exact decision. And I want to give you the wisdom and insight. So when these decisions come up, you'll know what to do. So, how many times have I given that talk? Every time I teach Parenting the Soul of the Child, I start with that talk. And everybody pushes back. And everybody says the exact same question the first class taught. And then I get people to settle down. The life of my child's soul starts today. Today. Am I a career coach or am I a parent? Am I a fount of wisdom? So there's an example that I don't think I can teach this enough. Those who have been with me in my classes will know how many times that moment where someone was, yeah, listening, and then a person brings it up and pushes, and they say, okay, I'm convinced. You're right. I have not done this right. So what do I do now? And I said, as soon as the session ends, you go apologize to your kid. Now, right? Some of you may have been there that night. And so he says, okay, so we ended. The next week we come back. I say, how'd it go? He said, the most transformative moment in my family. My child cried and said, Daddy, I thank you. And he cried. And an entirely new relationship was born because it was this day, this is the moment to turn your life around and start parenting the soul of your child, start parenting with wisdom. And families get rebirthed when parents decide to be wise people. So my dilemma is, should I be original? Or sharpen the skills. I go to my jujitsu club. We never say, what, arm lock from the guard again? Oh my God, can't you think of any more original moves? Yes, you can't get good enough at an arm lock from the guard. I mean, it's like, no one gets good enough. You can be a black belt for 20 years and you still have to practice the basic moves. That's how I feel about wisdom work. Drill, train, because the day you need it, you really, really do need it. And I want to add to that in addition to virtue and rationality and insight, the fourth is depth. And I wait to get to depth. But going along with what was said earlier and the poetry we have every week, there has to be a foundation in my mind, ultimately to do wisdom work. Because wisdom work, all wisdom, not just my version of it, it has to come from a sense of purpose. And the purpose of living an honorable life, meaning you live according to some code. You're not pushed around by what happens on the outside. No one can get you off your track. You are solid. There's kind of a stoic sensibility because you're so committed to honor. You're so committed to being an honorable person for yourself and to other people. And that takes a deep set. So you can learn all the skills, and the Yetzer Hara is going to go deep. It's going to start undermining in the mine shaft. And people have said to me, um, I'm stuck in a really bad marriage. I try to do your wisdom stuff. I'm just kind of minimizing the damage, but like, what am I doing here? How did I even get here? And my response is, you're living by an honor code, is what you're doing. You got a couple of kids. Clearly, your spouse is going through something very distressing, and you keep reacting as if you don't have wisdom. So I just reminded this person, what is it like to live with somebody who goes in and out of disorders? It's not pleasant. He said, I didn't volunteer for this. I said, that's not what life is like. What life is like is you get drafted and sent to the front line, and you can resent and you can complain and you can run away and do a poor job at it. You can say, life brought me to this moment. So I came up with a quip. So he said to me, Rabbi Finley, I feel like I'm in prison. I said, you are in prison. He says, what? I didn't think you would agree. I said, no, you're in prison, man. He said, well, what do I do? I said, plant a garden. Plant a little garden in your prison. Take care of your garden. And he said, wow. And I talk about tending to your garden in prison. I said, oh, I don't know if I told you, we're all in prison. No one gets out of here alive. We're in the prison of an outside world that we can't control. There's an inner prison of the Yetzer Hara constantly trying to have its way with us. Build some beauty in your life and figure out the honor code of being with all these other prisoners. And some prisoners say, let's get through this thing together. Let's create some love together. Let's create beauty together. No one's getting out of here. And other prisoners, they go through it and they just make it worse for everybody. No, now this is a very, very dour existentialism, right, Rabbi Manning? This is the point of existentialism. No one gets out of here alive. It feels meaningless. Create meaning. Going back to my talks recently, build a symbolic universe that produces a life of honor. Know yourself very deeply. Know other people. Commit yourself to a moral code. Live a life of truth. This is the garden, right? And that is a fragile garden. Or just walk around, the prison and make life everybody else miserable and let people make you miserable. There's a couple of, choose life or this other thing. And so I really believe that at a very deep level, um, living a life of purpose means overcoming what sometimes can feel the thrownness of the human condition. This guy said to me, I was thrown into a life I did not expect. I wasn't ready for. I said, that's why you called me. A friend of a friend of a friend says, I got the guy. And he says, you really, really helped me. He's not reactive. He's developed a skill set. And, you for a person with a disorder, but not hospital type, just a person going through a very bad condition, being reactive and making it worse is not good for anybody. So I said, try to imagine not how your wife annoys you, about how when you're centered and you can move past this, what you're doing for her. Because I don't think she is willing this happens to her and she knows something's off. And the children, they're not seeing extended bitter conflict. They're watching a father say, oh, my wife's in trouble. I better come up with compassion and care and concern and firm boundary setting and not make this thing worse. I said, so your children are learning. They're soaking everything in. You are, whether you like it or not, you're parenting the soul of your child. They're watching. What happens here? That when someone else is in trouble, someone steps up. When someone's in trouble, you don't say, yeah, but marriage is 50-50. No, it's not. It's not 50-50. Sometimes it's 90-10. And that's just the way things are. Now, today's the day when you do 90 and they do 10. And that's just what it means to be an honorable person. So this commitment to wisdom for me is based on something very, very deep. Just the last couple of minutes on this, I have the Dvar Torah already, and I do a preface, and that's all my time. So let me share with you where this is going. I'll continue more tomorrow. And that is in the season of apologies. And I remember when I was younger, people say, "This is the time for holding somebody accountable. This is the time for apologizing," as if people would say, "Oh yeah, oh, what a dummy, I forgot." And then we all just kind of run around apologizing to each other. And I realized I don't think I ever got apologies. Like I'm Jewish, like it's Elul, and I'm like kind of waiting for people to line up at my door, and I'm going to line up at their doors, and we all talk about it, but nobody does it. It's like a thing in the background that we're proud of. And as I've counseled people and myself about apologies, it's a really, really difficult thing. So rather than say it's time to apologize, I'm going to say it's time to confront the part of you that has profound resistance to apologizing. And you may never get around to an apology, but at least face the resistance. So one is the vulnerability of apologizing, to come in and saying, that thing, yes, I was really wrong. I was morally weak. I couldn't restrain myself. My Yetzer Hara had its way, and I said things I should never have said, and I was a person I don't want to be anymore. And I apologize. And the person might say, you know, I wrote you off a long time ago. I don't care. Go away. You've done all this super work, and all you get is a put down. Sometimes with families, what happens is I wrote in my Shabbat thought, a case of the whatabouts. Uh, or when you try to get an apology, I want you to apologize for me for raising your voice. Well, what about when you remember the evil reliquary? Every hurt is taken down into this evil reliquary. We go and shine it up. So if someone comes in and says, "Hey, you pull out this evil stone and say, yeah, but what about you?" And we people treasure this this ammunition, if I may change the metaphor, to use against other people. Some people actually prepare it. I know they're going to come and say to me, "Why did you raise your voice?" I'm going to have one ready for them, right? Well, in June 2003, right, and okay, we got to kiss the whatabouts here. It's all reciprocity, right? Eye for an eye, which is it's important, but it can be the beginning of hell. So I was speaking to a person this week, and this person wanted to know who I am. He's like, he met me. A lot of people thinking about, creating a study group. I'll let everybody go slow. And he wanted to know where I am with the politics. And I said to him, I don't like the demonstrations. He says, yeah, but we have to change the country. I said, it hasn't worked. The Likud party is not going to change his mind because you shut down the airport. That's not how it's going to go. And he goes, yeah, you're right, but you got to do something. I said, sometimes you got to do nothing. You just got to, you got to let the legal system figure itself out and not shut down the economy and shut down the schools and shut down the hospitals. I said, that's one thing. You're hurting a lot of people, and they're not going to resign, right? You're not going to topple the government. Would we agree? Yes. So you're causing a lot of suffering because you want to say to yourself, you did something. And it is so filled with hatred. It is so filled with Lashon Hara. Even if I agreed with your goals, I'm ashamed of your methods because you've left a life of honor and you're hurting other people. And he said, all I feel is hate. All I feel is hate, not Hamas. Hatred of the Likud party and the head of government. And I said, look, I don't want to sound all new agey here, but you have to cultivate love, reverence, and gratitude. And he said, oh, come on. You can't cultivate that stuff. I know it sounds really horrible. It sounds really horrible to just for a moment know that you have a loving heart. Think of someone that you love and really sit inside. I love people, or I've loved someone, or someone has loved me. You have to think about it because the Yahara wants you in action. And if you're next to somebody, you say, "Oh, I love you," and then it goes away. Try to imagine that every single day you rehearsed your love, the love that you have given, and the love you have received. Just you meditate on it. You cultivate a loving heart. And then I mentioned to him, because high holidays are coming up, I mentioned reverence. And he said, "Lo מדברים על זה." And people don't talk about this. I said, "That's not מדבר על זה." And I gave him the teaching I shared with you last week of what do you revere? I mean, do you revere the truth and social justice? I said, so model it. What would a just society look at? Let's say you get your way, you topple the government. Now what? You've set a precedent for hatred and demonstrations and shutting down the economy and closing the airport. Is that the precedent you want to set in the society? Or if you're going to take over the government eventually, do you want to project honor? He said, it's not like that in Israel. I said, it could be. It could be. Someone just did a study of Israeli discourse and said that only 11% of Israeli politicians engage in destructive discourse. The other 89% don't do it, but the 11% have taken over the message. And there are groups here that are saying we have to reel this in. So I was speaking to him as a involved citizen, and I said, and I want to tell you something. I don't know if this is you, but I've seen it. That becomes a habit. They take it home to their spouses. They take it home to their children. They take it home when they argue about with somebody else about these kinds of things. That's why these kind of conversations always devolve into so much bitterness because no one's training themselves to have a heart of love and a heart of reverence, reverence for humanity, reverence for your values. So if you get triggered, you go to your values. You don't let the Yetzer Hara say, I've been triggered, so forget my values. I'm going to attack somebody and hurt them and call them names. That's one way to go. Or I'm going to drill love. I'm going to drill reverence. I'm going to drill attachment to facts and truth. These things have to be drilled. And you drill and drill and drill these things. And in the moment, you will actually be ready to be, if I may, the person you're supposed to become. We're not supposed to be angry, reactive people who insult people and make things worse. I don't think that's our purpose. I think our purpose is to make things better. I mean, in a Jewish teleological sense, what are we supposed to become? And we talked about it, and he said, "Yeah, you're right. You're right. There's this anger, this hatred can be a poison for the soul. You take it home, you take it against other people." And he said, "But everybody tries to talk your way." He said, "It's like, but they say, but we want to fight." I said, "I get it. It's an uphill struggle, but we who believe this way, we have to talk this way amongst ourselves. It's a conversation that we have to have and strengthen each other and invite others over for Shabbos and talk to people and make a case and kind of be an evangelical of honor and dignity and reasonability and hearts of love for humanity and reverence for my ideals. I said, if we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. And so what I'm saying is when we want to do this teshuva, for example, I want to come to somebody and say, I need to hold you accountable because you really hurt me. Now let's say I go down into love, reverence, gratitude, attachment to truth. That's my foundation. Yeah, I'm working virtue, but I want to go down to the foundational depths. They're also a child of God. They're also struggling with a meaning and purpose and their eventual death. And we had a bad moment. Okay? Now I can come in here, on the horse of self-righteousness. I can get off my high horse. I can realize maybe what happened was a symptom of someone else's great suffering, and I was proximate. I just happened to be the person on the stage when they were having a very difficult moment, and they needed to attack somebody, so they attacked me. Or even in politics, I think in many ways they're targets of opportunity, right? We need to be angry, so we'll just pick this person, stay angry at that person. And why? So I don't have to look within. I don't have to look with my own existential dread, my life's meaninglessness. I don't have a belief system. So it's better just to hate because you don't have to face all that stuff. So you say to yourself, maybe there was something going on here that I could barely understand because I was so focused in my hurt and getting back. I didn't cultivate a lev yodea. So I thought about making an appeal as we move into the high holidays, something I want to develop on the high holidays is my typical procedure has learn virtue, learn rationality and reasoning, how to think well, cultivate an insight practice, and then get to a life of depth. And I realize that sometimes you have to turn that around. Cultivate a life of depth, right? A knowing heart connected to love, justice, and beauty, truth and beauty, like the symbolic world I spoke about the second week after Tisha B'Av. The Kasir says we live in a symbolic world. Well, what if all the neon signs said love, justice, truth, beauty, reverence, depth, right? Every book said that. You say to yourself, that's my symbolic universe. And then something happens between you and somebody else. You say to yourself, it's a suffering soul. And I can either, add to the suffering of the world, and maybe I can be the person to say, yeah, that was tough for me to hear. But, you know, we're in the prison. Let's plant a garden together. We don't have to go this other horrible path. So in my introduction, as we get closer to Teshuva, which is, kind of technically apologize, forgive. And then my knowledge, how hard it is for people to apologize, forgive, hold to account, etc. It might be because people are not living in a world of such depth that those things become obvious. If you're not rooted in depth, the simple becomes very difficult. All right, so my hope for all of us is, as always for me, what the calendar does for me is have me think about things I would never think about if I were not religious. Meaning, I can't imagine what it's like to go through life and not have a season of the year where this is the only thing you talk about. Like, how do other people do it if they don't have holidays that say, we are going to now guide your consciousness? And if you come along with this holiday, you can hear that song we talked about earlier, and that can become your song. The song is waiting for you. And so just going through the sweep of this calendar that on my own, I would never, ever be conscious enough to put these seasons of reflection into my life. And as I stand back and I say to myself, what an incredible gift that these wise masters have put these teachings into our calendar. And all you have to do is show up. It's all ready for you. It's like, let's say you're hungry and starving, and there's an orchard with luscious nectarines. I'm so hungry. Well, there's an orchard right there. Yeah, but I don't like to go to orchards. Yeah, you do. I just go on that orchard and pick the luscious fruit. It's waiting for you. Just go on in there. Well, that's for me what Jewish holidays are like. They're, it's heavy laden ripe fruit that will nourish the soul. You just got to go there and learn the art of if I extend the metaphor of fruit picking. All right, so that's my message for today, and I think the kind of introduction for what I want to do tomorrow. I have lots of things to share with you. Okay, I'm going to share one. I think I've got another minute. The I'm reading in the newspapers that the Israeli pager attack on Hezbollah, it wasn't strategic, and where's the longer goal? Is this going to do any good? I said, number one, we got an enemy that's been trying to massacre civilians. I mean, Hezbollah is aiming at civilians. They want to destroy Israeli lives. They've emptied out the north. They've created a huge refugee crisis here. So Israel says, well, we need to defeat the Hezbollah army. And when you defeat an enemy army, it oftentimes means killing the enemy soldier. But that often means, with the kind of enemy we have, collateral damage, blowing up villages. So Israel found a way, the most precise delivery system to take an enemy soldier off the field. Okay, it was brilliant, and the way war should be fought, right? I mean, you don't want to bomb cities. You just want to take a soldier off the field, but get him in the hospital for a couple of months. So that's number one. Now other people think, you blew up a lot of people's legs. I say, yeah, but they were trying to blow up a lot of people's brains, with concussion, with concussive artillery strikes. So yeah, I don't feel sorry for Hezbollah. The other thing is the morale of Israelis. The morale of Israelis skyrocketed. That says, so we're the smart army again. Okay. I mean, the intelligence failed a year ago, and now intelligence has become intelligent. And the jokes just abounded. Jokes abounded. People were putting pager images with different things on the screen. One was more hilarious than the other. It was just, I mean, it was definitely very dark humor. Um, But they're trying to kill us. And we put a bunch of them in the hospital so they can't kill us today. And we got a good laugh at their expense, which is like uh, another part of it. So I'm taking my advanced level Ulpan. I'm trying to perfect my sling Hebrew, believe it or not. I'm doing that 3 hours a week. And so our teacher comes in and she says, one of the greatest benefits of the pager attack has been that Generation Z knows what a pager is, right? So all these kids are going, "Ah, mama's a pager." So, anyway, there's so many good jokes going. And you know what? When people are threatening to annihilate you and you have a good joke now and then, that's not a bad thing. All right. So it may not have great strategic value, but it uplifted the morale of Israelis, and people really need a morale boost here. And it kind of gave people confidence that there's a government on the scene that's working stuff out in creative ways and trying to protect us. Even the idea, I know the concept. We meet people all the time. So we were having dinner and someone said, "Oh, my accent. You sound American." Okay, I confess I'm an American. So this person's an American with much better Hebrew than mine. So we switched to English. We're talking and having an incredible conversation. I mean, everything I've read, he's read, except that he's 22. Okay, so I was like, wow, dude, Nietzsche and Hayek and everything I've studied. I said, so you major in philosophy? He goes, no, I majored in engineering. I do this stuff in my spare time. I said, okay, great. So we start talking, and then a couple of very nice looking young women show up, and I think to myself, okay, so we're gonna stop books, and I'll let them have their soiree. And this young woman picks up, she goes, well, what are you guys talking about? And so I thought, well, I don't want to ruin your date. And she said, no, I want to know. And she's here on a mission, a deeply intelligent and spiritual young woman who came to Israel to she's a social media business person from Canada. Says, what am I doing here making money in social media? I want to do social media for the Israeli government. Makes aliyah. Okay. And then her friend, Libby introduced my friend, and my friend says, so what's with you? She says, well, I arrived 3 weeks ago for a visit and I'm making aliyah. I'm staying. I already did all the paperwork. And everybody at the table was an Oleh Hadash. Everybody had come within the last year. These all kids in their 20s. Okay. Want to hear the clincher? So it finally comes out. I'm a rabbi, and I have this spirituality thing. She says, I want you to consider something. I said, sure. She said, I have a bunch of girlfriends, and we all study with Chabad, but it's not it. Would you consider leading a Torah study group for a bunch of Israeli young people? I said, stop talking. I said, where'd you come from? It's like, and she said, no, we really, we go to Chabad. We love the rabbi, but it's not what we want. So anyway, so there was that. That was like, me, Rob, and I went out to dinner. Boom, there's that. So much depth and meaning here, and it might be because we're a people, under under the threat of annihilation, and something happens where something grows inside. If possible, others devolve into hate, and others grow in stature, and we keep meeting one person after the other. Especially the new immigrants. The new immigrants are here. We all say the same thing: Zionism, solidarity. Yes, I have family here, but if my family were living in France, I wouldn't move to France. Yes, my family lives here, but it's Israel. And so there's something really incredible happening here that is almost not measurable, truly not measurable, but magnificent. And I want to make sure I want to make sure that about it. The news is not going to report this, that there's something very deep happening in Israel. So last January when I was here and I felt it, I thought, I have to be there. You remember, I have to be in Israel. Well, it's exactly right. I mean, there's something here that I have to be here. If you can visit, visit, and if not, we'll tell you all about it so you don't miss this unique moment in the history of our people, history of the people of Israel, where something epic happened. And it's the epic part that Meirav and I want people to know about.